I know. I have a few more Zoomers popping on. Not sorry for the awkwardness. It's not you, it's me. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's what this is called, retreat, jet lag, and glow. Yeah. Oh. Welcome back, Zoomers. Can you hear me okay? Hi, Sandy. Thumbs up. Getting there. Thumbs up. All right. Thumbs up. We're in. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your time online there. Good morning. I apologize, we were a few minutes late. Sometimes those warm drinks are a necessity, and we wanted to get ourselves all settled here in the Zendo. So I hope you have a drink online too. Hi, Shuping, and are all settled in for this morning's talk. So I did this morning's talk is entitled, well, for those of you, I think you all know me, right? Kelly Junmei Good, a humble practitioner here and member of the Zen Life and Meditation Center for a handful of years now. I'm not even sure how many, a while. So this morning, I wanted to talk about just show up. So I am one of the instructors of the Mindfulness and Meditation Foundations course that we teach here at the Zen Center. Roshi Joshin took the time to really train us and work deeply in these foundations that he feels are important for establishing and creating the foundation in which we can all strive to live a Zen-inspired life. And we talk in the first class, the foundation, about just show up. Just show up. It comes from what we call a pillar of wellness. This foundation is 4 pillars like a chair or a stool, and they are wellness is a function of having these components that I'm going to go through, one of which is purpose or motivation, which is the just show up part. When one of these pieces are off, we may find ourselves I find myself being wobbly or rocky. So I find it's always great when I teach the course or just when I have times to slow down, like in meditation retreat, that I come back to these foundations and look at them again. So the 4 pillars are the motivation that I'm going to talk about and focus on today. Also the attention that we bring once we've established our motivation, the insight and wisdom that can come from that attention, and then connection, which is our Sangha and our connection with all of being. And just right motivation, it's having this just right intensity about our spiritual practice. And before I get into that, I do want to offer gratitude to all of you for being here. It means a lot to me that I can share my practice in this way, take the time and space to digest it, to offer what I can in terms of anything that may be useful, inspiring, helpful to any of you. I'd like to thank Dan, who made it possible for me this week to run all the kids, all the places, do meals, to make it happen. It is not a small feat when it is not a small feat when I ask, please let me step out of our habitual patterns in my life and step into retreat. So I really appreciate you doing that. Also, my sister-in-law, Erica, she fed my family maybe more than once this week, and I know she had done some other things instead, and I do appreciate you being here. Also like to give a last shout out, in case this is helpful to anyone, that I am a teacher, and my union contract included a religious leave. And part of the reason I was able to practice, yes, I know the jaw drops, it's true, only because I can read carefully I found somewhere on page 37 that there is a religious leave where I can take the time I need for my spiritual development as offered through the Oak Park Teachers Contract. So because of that, I'm very grateful to their hard work that I was able to take this leave, knowing my work is in good hands and my other teachers are supported. So with that, I would like to say thank you. Now, moving on to this pillar of well-being. Why did we create it in the foundations? Why did Roshi Joshin create this? It's because living a Zen-inspired life is just this deep sense of wellness, and it kind of comes from the Greek term eudaimonia, which is often translated as thriving or flourishing. The Greeks considered a life of eudaimonia to be a good life or a life well lived in accordance with particular values. And it's found that when we are able to live in this way with strong pillars, we see virtues arise such as openness, curiosity, empathy, generosity, gratitude, honesty, integrity, loyalty, and it's not a short list. And what emotion arises from living with that eudaimonia is joy. And I'll talk a little bit more about how I see that arise here in our center. So, but first I want to say that the Greeks contrasted this with hedonia, which is sort of a everyday pleasure seeking that arises from our senses. It's not all bad. We experience this when we eat a delicious snickerdoodle, when we have delicious meals, but too much of it or an unbalanced focus on it can lead to a state of greed or desire or clinging or longing, which can create suffering. And it's almost always then engendered with it is like a feeling of competition, and it is not what we're looking for when we're striving for really true happiness. So to follow the pillars and start with motivation, you're already doing it. You just showed up. The deep spiritual path such as Zen requires us to have this clear intention, whatever that may be for you. Some of us walked in here and said, you know, I want to wake up. I'm so tired of suffering. Why is this not working for me the way I expected? Maybe you came to understand big questions. What am I here for? What is the meaning of life? You need to have this motivation, and it needs to be clear and strong so that you will eventually not become distracted and lose interest in the path when something seductive comes up, like March Madness, a few days too early for me, and I could be home watching exciting basketball, but I can find this intention that I have to live this Zen-inspired life, and I can keep my focus and stay then present in what it is I've already committed to do. There seems to be a beautiful patience to it, which I think is part of our Bodhisattva path, to live with patience, as I'm learning. And it seems to be this patience that persists over time to have this intention to be well. So what happens when it's not enough? When our motivation is not enough, it weakens, and then we're easily more given over to apathy and despair. If I don't have a strong enough intention, I lose interest in the nearest opportunities. It will, the teachings will then sort of not engage me to think about them very much or be interested or curious enough to study and learn about them. So when I find that my motivation may be weakening, that's when I look to re-spark that intention of what brought me here to begin with, to live this Zen-inspired life. And then I can see that which takes me maybe to a new inspiration. Maybe it's investigating a new circle here at the center, reaching out and volunteer work in some way, stepping into a 7-day retreat. And that will help increase or bring back that weak motivation into more of a just right space if that's what I'm needing. If I have too much motivation, this may manifest as being very attached to an outcome. I'm coming to retreat because I'm going to leave enlightened this time. I'm doing it, and I'm not leaving until it happens. That is called too much motivation. When your practice is focused on attaining a future goal, like I'm going to improve myself, and it's going to be like I'm never going to get angry ever again. I will never swear in traffic ever again. When it's a future goal, you'll easily be disappointed when that goal isn't achieved, and you'll miss the many graces and gifts that are present to you in this present moment. Sometimes this looks like you're pushing too hard. If you have that feeling like you just got to keep going, there's too much effort and agency then in your practice, and it can lead to many kinds of unbalanced inflations. You can be susceptible then to this disappointment, this despair, and discouragement. I have a joke for this one. So a Zen student goes to a temple and asks a Zen master, if I join your temple, how long will it take me to gain enlightenment? And he said, maybe 10 years. He said, well, what if I work really hard and try really hard? He said, then 20. And 20. So if your motivation gets a little bit dysfunctional, it's directed your motivation towards something that leads not to a deep sense of wellness. You may have a motivation to make a lot of money in the stock market or in your career. You may turn into a workaholic. That is very easy to do as a teacher, I feel like. You start to rarely see your family or friends, and you just get super focused in this goal-oriented way. So even though you seem to have a strong intention, at some point we need to recognize it's not leading to our wellness. And anything you do that compromises your wellness is leading a life according to hedonia and not eudaimonia. So when your intention is optimally balanced, then it is strong and clear. It does not allow external circumstances or events to sidetrack it, but it just does not give up when challenges arise, but it just keeps on going in a determined and steady way. I found during this retreat, we would have this little break after lunch, and the second I stepped out these doors, there's something calling to me that can use my attention, but when I have the motivation to stay focused and commit to what it is I said I was going to do this week, I can find that I can pause it, I can ask for help, and I can come back to my community and finish what it was that I determined and set out to do. Most everyone at one time or another forgets their motivation or gets sloppy with it, and that's okay, it happens, but always come back. And when you're able to do that, you can keep your spiritual practice going. So we just showed up, now what? So we sit. We did a lot of sitting this week in meditation together. And so when we have this motivation, we then can focus in on our intention and awareness. So we talk about mindfulness at our Zen Center as an intentional awareness that is embodied and without judgment. This requires a quality of attention to stay focused without being distracted. Much of this involves quieting that voice in your head that correlates with what neuroscience calls this default mode network, or DMN. When we're at rest and homeostasis, the network is very active with thoughts about I, me, mine, myself. And when you actively pay attention to a task or practice in mindfulness meditation, like counting the breath, doing samu work, cooking in the kitchen, you dampen down the activity in that part of the brain, which leads to this decentering in your thought process. There's a lot of neuroscience studies that show a strong correlation between people that use many personal pronouns, even in their speech, and the correlation with anxiety, stress, and depression. So people who use less personal pronouns display less of these negative symptoms. So attention is crucial for our balance and well-being. And that's why we emphasize the importance of having a regular daily meditation practice. And so when we're sitting in the Zendo together, we sit on a cushion and focus on what comes up. So what is it like when we're sitting, when we're paying attention and intentional awareness? Well, sometimes we have not enough attention and we become easily distracted. It's difficult to learn and grow. I think we've all had this experience. Our attention is divided and fragmented, and it's giving over to a negative thoughts or emotions, which can compromise your well-being. And when we just have not enough, it's just wonderful to always have the count to come back to. That counting the breath never gets old, never too advanced for the counting, and really helps get our attention to that just right level. So when we have too much attention, we can be feeling like we're getting hypervigilant, which can manifest as busyness, which is the side I tend to lean towards a little bit. It can get a little busy. And then if you escalate with that, can lead to paranoia or acting out in unskillful ways that can compromise your well-being. So what is optimal really like? When your attention is optimally balanced, we're able to be in this present moment right here without being distracted. You're able to follow through on tasks to completion without being sidetracked. You're able to listen and learn from your experience in ways that contribute to your growth and health. This also includes that embodied awareness, and we practice this also while we're sitting. I mean, we think of this a lot of times like with yoga or hula or dancing, exercising, walking, Kinyan, but we're also being embodied while we're sitting. And let's talk a little bit then while we're embodied and focusing with not judgment, non-judgment, what comes up? Well, emotions come up. Some of them stronger than others. We talked about this a bit during retreat in our session this week. And we all have emotions. It's part of our human experience, and they arise. Really, if we wanted to look at it from a biological perspective, we could say that emotions are positive. They're all positive in that they're looking for some need that we have, meaning they're good in a way that gets us moving or prompts us to take action or raises our awareness that there is something that we need. Maybe we can't meet it in the moment, but there is something there that we need. So all emotions, we could say, are positive because they serve a purpose. If we're able to do that, we can break them down. If we agree with this construct, then we can break these emotions down into families and sort of use it as a starting point in our awareness for understanding our own emotionality and how they arise. As you block these emotions into groups and start to notice a repeated story that you can get caught up in, you can help see which flavor may be yours right now and how to then connect that with some loving compassion for yourself and just welcome that when you see, oh, hi, you're there again. So I have a few of these that seem to be the most common that come up when we're sitting meditation. We have anger, right? This is our only sort of alienating emotion. We have fight or flight that is associated with this, but it really is, if from a positive perspective, designed to keep us safe. So we can slow down in meditation and say, am I really in an unsafe place? What is it that I need and am looking for? And I'll talk more about that in a minute. So we have also fear, which feels sort of like the fight or flight, but this emotion is moving you away this time. And in the body, fear can also feel a little bit like anger. So having that embodied experience of sitting can really be helpful in helping clarify what may be coming up for you. Sadness is an emotion that moves you inward because you feel something valuable or something important to you maybe has been lost or is not available to you. We have shame. We talk a lot about this in the foundations course as well. It can often get in the way of sitting practice, but biologically, from that perspective, we can still see it as a positive emotion because shame is when you've committed perhaps an act against the accepted norms of your tribe or family or community. Evolutionarily, maybe shame has come from a space of wanting to have or wanting to be in connection with others, and you have this feeling that maybe there's been a disconnect there. And not saying that shame always comes from an act that you've committed, but it's something to consider that maybe there is something positive there that we can welcome and see how we can work with it. Jealousy is another one. This comes from that comparison, greed, competition. It's a movement to do better. So we can see that as a positive space. We have a want to do better, but it's often tied with this sense of control, or there's like an action in response to jealousy, and it's sort of a excited misery, maybe you call it. There's some excitement to it, but it's not joy or happiness. So we have disgust, which can keep people from avoiding or touching things that threatens our survival. And then we have a positive one or two I'll throw in here. We also have happiness, which moves us towards others with playfulness, curiosity. And then we also have love, which is also an emotion that moves us towards one another for bonding and connection. So at this point in our practice, when we're practicing that one-pointed attention and counting the breath, we are gently noticing, and again, without judgment, for these emotions that arise, and then they come back, we come back to the breath and let them move. So how does this tie in? Well, we have a third pillar, which is wisdom or insight. And when we take a look at, or able to slow down and see with a little clarity what is happening here, we are able to work with it and work in our practice. So I think Maizumi Roshi said, we need not mix what we think with what is actually happening. So again, this is coming back to that insight of slowing down to then be able to work with what's coming up. So insight leads to a clearer view of ourselves and our world around us. Insight has to do with being aware of our awareness. We often are lost in our thoughts and feelings, but insight brings a capacity for this metacognition, or this meta-awareness I'm speaking of, which allows us to watch our experience with some removal of yourself or the I in the story. And it is a critical aspect of our well-being, and it also involves regulating and balancing our thoughts and emotions. So when it's not enough insight, we will have little awareness of our thoughts or feelings. This can happen to me a lot, where I'm not even able to really articulate what is happening when I have a feeling, and we can be taken over and consumed by them. So we have to pause and say, do I have a need here yet that I have not yet articulated or have not fully experienced yet? When there's too much insight, or we trying too hard, we get that overthinking, and that can lead to all kinds of problems that I won't get into here. But we can also have a little bit of dysfunctional insight as well, which can lead to overreacting, taking things personally, being angry and outraged, that moral outrage, and situations that can lead to suffering. So how can we work with this a little bit? In our foundations course, we talk a little bit about, if those of you who'd like a process, I have a couple steps that we take to kind of help get started with sort of breaking down some of those pieces that can be more challenging. When you're on the cushion and an emotion arises, you can follow this process for perhaps managing that emotional state with a little compassion and gentleness. So you may want to identify the trigger or the situation, which you're probably already doing if it's in your mind during your sitting. You can quantify the intensity, a numerical scale of 1 to 10, like how intense is this emotion for me? Then we have to move into the body, right? That's really important, and identify that embodied experience. How is that emotion felt in your body? We want to anchor our bodies as much as we can to be grounded in our experience when we're having emotional reactions. So can we really feel where that is in my throat, in my chest? Am I feeling tension? Then notice, if you can, what is your action urge? What do you feel like you would do right now? What is that emotion action asking of you? And then what did you actually do? And then if there's an action or not action, or what would you actually do, then ask yourself, what was that after effect, if you imagine that, and what was the secondary emotion? So when off the cushion and these emotional states arise, after I've checked in with a possible trigger and then the emotion and intensity and the embodied experience, I know it sounds kind of like a lot, but it actually kind of condenses and gets a little quicker. I can then look at possible cognitive distortions that I may be experiencing that could help me better understand why that was a trigger or what that possibly could have been. So the stronger your mindfulness meditation practice grows, the easier it becomes to see in the moment when you might have a cognitive distortion clouding your insight or clear seeing. Your meditation helps you to be grounded in your experience in the moment. So I'll just name a few, just because I have found them to be helpful to just call them out. So some of the bigger, more common cognitive distortions are this black and white thinking. Life is really much more like a gray. Black and white thinking, right and wrong, helps us to create certainty in a world where certainty really just doesn't exist. Are we jumping to conclusions? We talk a lot in the foundations class about minding the gap, or being in that gap, that place where your life experience has become different than what you expected or anticipated. And are you trying to quickly shovel that in and fill that in? So can you be okay with that not knowing, beginner's mind, and not jump to conclusions so quickly? Catastrophizing, also making a situation or an event a much bigger deal than it might actually be. I think enough said on that one. Unrealistic expectations. I think this happens a lot in parenting. Overlaying judgment on a person or situation because people did not behave how we expected or would have liked. Then we have negative bias. You hold on to or pick out the bad things that happened without putting it into perspective with all the good that happened too. I work on this one. We are hardwired to do this from a biological perspective, but it's very easy, like a classroom of 30 children, I can just focus on that one child that's causing disruption, but I have 29 other students doing wonderful, beautiful, cooperative work. And am I balancing the good with the bad? Emotional reasoning. So when we're upregulated, we can make poorer decisions and can even be manipulative with our emotions. I know I've been guilty of this. If I feel unregulated, tired, wired, overdone, I know that that may not be the best time for me to be making decisions or engaging with others on more difficult topics. It just won't work for me. I'm not going to show up the way that I want to show up in those situations. And I know now to wait or pause or reschedule that. And then taking things personally, this is the last one. We are not that, I am not that important. I am not that important. And as human beings, we all have the same needs. So oftentimes I find I don't really need to take it personally when that's something I may have done before. And I often will ask, is this behavior or this thing that happened or didn't happen, is it really about me? Almost always it's not. And such an easy, it's such a freeing answer, like, not about me, okay? I don't have to feel that way, like I have agency over this. So what I want to add to that, it sort of ties to it, is that when we hold on to something that someone does in a relationship or has done in connection with you, it often kind of closes off or squeezes the door shut of that opportunity for myself and other to change. And we all want to leave that door open, right? And I find that I work, it's a gift. And it's a gift, as Roshi June had said in one of her Tay shows today, this week, it's a gift without a giver, without a receiver, without a gift, but that leaving the door open so that others can have the opportunity to change and do different. I don't say she's always like that, or there it is again, this sort of thing. And it really allows us to be a verb instead of a noun. And if we are practicing to move and move on in our path, we have to allow others the ability to do that too. So how do we show up then? So much happens in this practice when I just show up here at my very own Zen Center. I'm so grateful to be a part of our Sangha together, and we talked about all the ways in which we show up and take a look at balancing our wellness, and then let's look at some outward manifestations that we can show up, like retreats. We show up in retreat. I was so grateful that I was able to do that this week. I know that to others who aren't regular practitioners, it can perhaps look a little scary on the outside to see us all come in together and we follow a rigid schedule and we do move from one activity to the next. But when you gather with others who have that intention to show up and practice deeply, there is a beautiful rhythm that comes out of the retreat while you're in it that leads to this rise of just, I feel, just connection and joyful effort. Some pieces that I particularly love about retreat is our service, which is not only during retreat, but in our every other Sunday. We all show up with this joyful effort at the beginning of retreat and get assigned new positions. And it's so lovely to see the different ways, all said and unsaid, that we show up together and practice this form. We've been chanting, new to us, a Korean version of a Heart Sutra, which I just find very inspiring and lovely, and encourage any of those who may be interested to jump in and try it. Also, new forms of Zen. This retreat was the first time I tried eating oryoki style, a beautiful practice of the traditional monastic Japanese way of eating. Oryoki meaning just enough, and I found that it was absolutely just enough. Eating out of my 3 small bowls and slowing down and enjoying that together in silent community. I think I found I eat a lot more on a regular basis than I probably need to. I also feel that eating together in that way added some, I don't know how to, just a beautiful sense of belonging, community, togetherness, where we patiently and carefully served one another, and I was surprised and welcomed that. We also do SAMU practice in retreats. And this time I noticed it has a lovely element for me that I appreciate, that not only do we get assigned a task, as Jackie did such a great job assigning tasks, sweeping and cleaning, but there is a element of time change, I feel like, in retreat and during SAMU, um, that really feels expansive to me, and I enjoy having the opportunity to do that. We also had some very, very amazing shows or talks during our retreat. Some said powerful, some said clarifying. Um, our teachers are also sitting with us, right there with us. And we had some beautiful examples of um, experiential practice with big mind and voice dialogue. And I'm looking forward to taking my slacker out today to go sit and watch basketball later. But the Tay shows were very beautiful. And also, finally, the last thing I wanted to say on the retreat is that it creates this container or beautiful space for us all to show up and practice in this retreat. And I felt like it was a very strong container this time. And what is lovely is just the beautiful acts of kindness that sort of emerge from being in this space together. Hugs, talking me off a wall when I wasn't sure I could learn how to clean my oryoki bowl right. Um, help with raksu making, help with sewing, an extra sit with someone, cooking, helping with cleaning. This was really, how Roshi June said it, just that constant gift moving of no giver, receiver, or gift. And it was just so lovely to see that flow of just joyful effort and love amongst those who are dedicated in the practice. And I feel like everyone practiced earnestly. You were not feeling well and you still showed up. You're so tired and you get it together and show up. You're not sure you can eat another oryoki meal and you show up. And you're not sure you can bring your mental focus to another sit and you still showed up. And I can't stress enough how that, for me, makes such a difference in the practice when we are here with the effort of waking up together. So with that, I just want to add the last piece, which I've already kind of talked about with, is the last pillar is this connection, this piece about connection. And I feel like we so lovely did that in our session. It is a beautiful way for us to be here together. I feel like Sky has a poem that she wrote that I would love to share that is so simple and beautiful about connection and retreat, if you'd be so kind.
Thank you, Junmei. It was an honor to be in retreat with you and with everyone else on the retreat. This poem is called The Lost Arts. Winks are not used enough, powerful like whistles, the kindly gestures of connection and location, from a time or place beyond or before screens and devices. My father's whistle had two notes, mellow and nurturing. Over here. My grandfather's whistle was one stout-hearted note, gently commanding. Kin, I could recognize their farmer whistles, sight unseen, from within the barn, out the pasture, up the fragrant silo, calling me to love, calling me to them. Let's bring back the lost arts of finding each other. Remember to wink at the world and listen for the whistle. It is love.
I just love that line, like the lost art of finding each other. When we talk about in sitting, like what we might need or what is emotions coming up that we need, I feel like I spend a lot of time, or maybe we do, our culture focuses on our physical well-being. But if we talk about looking in nonviolent communication, they tally maybe 12 things we need for our physical well-being. You want to take a guess at how many we need for connection? Like how many different ways to describe needs that we may have for connection? Take a number. 38. 38. So if we just have 12 physical needs, which include water, air, comfort, food, we have 38 different ways that we may have a need arise for connection. And I feel like spending time in retreat is a way to reconnect with that sort of lost art of connecting with one another in a way that is really meaningful to our practice. So after all that connecting and all of that, just one more thought before I opened up for conversation or anything that may have arose for you. Maybe talk about a beautiful moment for you where you just showed up. But this is a quote from Kantrul Rinpoche. He's a Tibetan Lama, author, painter. I think he lives in Colorado. But he quotes, and I'll close with this, that the potential for realization is universal and present for all of us. True benefit will come from your own efforts and realizations. For your efforts to bring benefit, you must take your life into your own hands and examine your mind and experience. From this point of view, nobody could be kinder to you than yourself. Nobody could have a greater effect on you or actually do more for you than yourself. The Buddha said, "I have shown you the path of liberation. Now liberation depends on you." This is really true. If you don't take your life into your own hands, not even the Buddha can make a difference. It's up to you. So I'll add with, just show up. Thank you. Thoughts that arose for you, things? Yeah, Gary, go ahead.
Well, thank you for the wonderful talk, and thanks for bringing up outcomes, showing up in outcomes. And just one observation: some years ago, we went to a retreat in a sangha, and it was a big retreat, and most of the people there wouldn't have known anybody unless they happened to come with them. And so there was a break. And I ended up in a group of 4 or 5 people with one of the teachers. We're just talking casually. So there was this gentleman, and he was elderly, and he had shown up. So he asked the teacher. He says, "So how long does it take for enlightenment?" He said, "Because I'm not getting any younger." And I could see that the teacher there was a pause that probably lasted 2 seconds. It seemed like probably a minute. And she said, "Well," and just about that time, the gong rang. And she very diplomatically said, "No, we can talk about that later." But this gentleman wanted the outcome. So thanks for bringing that up.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And it's great to notice when that arises, right? We all have the ability to bring ourselves back. Anyone else? Other thoughts, comments? What's it? Oh, so I will say that some of the ways we can just show up here in case we're not all in all of these is our Sunday morning Zen, like you do here. We have morning meditation that sits every morning. We have our Mother Earth stewards that do such wonderful work. We have an open heart circle. We have yoga that's happening on a monthly basis, weekly. Reading circle, as Sky mentioned, knitting circle, people of color circle. We have foundation courses and classes. If you're of the mind, we have a board of directors, marketing and fundraising, all of those pieces. We have a parenting circle with mindfulness for parents. We have an upcoming workshop on intimacy. We have a day retreat. If you want to just show up for one day and see how it goes, you can do that. And we also have our kinship circle, which we are about to jump into our kinship hour, which is so wonderful that we can come together and fellowship that way after our Sunday morning. So please, if any of these so inspires you, just show up. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Would you suggest that people work into a 7-day retreat, or, the 1-day retreat sounds good? From your experience, like, any guidelines? Should you start with 1, 3, and then 7, or?
I'm going to go the expert over there who has done, if Roshi June would be so kind, as you've done quite a few more retreats than I. Do you have a recommendation on process?
Well, you know, it just depends, because there have been people who have just jumped in to a 7-day and found it very nourishing. But for most people, you know, having a regular practice helps a lot. And if you want to kickstart your practice, you might come to a 1-day. And then when we have our 7 days, which the next one will be in September, I think there's a 3-day also in May. You know, you can come all mornings or all evenings, so you can come part-time. So you might want to try, you know, part-time if your practice is not regular. But if your practice is regular, you know, I'm all for jumping in. We have a schedule that is, it's not as long as some centers, you know, in terms, some centers sit 8 to 10 hours a day, you know, but we're less than that. So I should ask people who have done retreats here, you know, how is it, right?
Oh, Sky.
I really love the sessions or 7-day retreats, and my feeling is just if you have a regular practice or just plunge in, it will meet you. The retreat will meet you where you're at. You know, yes, the retreat will find you, and you will find it.
I really like that you paced us through what it was like, because I think it's been a while since I've done a retreat.
Yeah.
And I just imagine like the whole day sitting there and sort of driving myself nuts. And, and you made it, you know, breaking up of the activities,
Yeah.
it just made it so much more real. Like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe I could do that.
Yeah, you definitely could. And there's more than what I spoke to. There's daily Dharma talks, like I said. There is interviews with our teachers in the evenings when we sit meditation. There's service. There's the Samu, the practice of immediacy, which was part of what Sky shared with us. That was her practice. And it's so lovely to just, I'm telling you, I was crying, as many of you witnessed, crying tears of just joy at the end of that retreat. It is that beautiful to me to take that time and be in that space. It's really moving to me to connect with that. So, yeah. Thank you, Roshi June. Thumbs up. Okay. Any other comments, questions before we eat a delicious banana bread made by our Tenzo? And we also have some pasta salad goodies. So we're ready to feast. If there's any comments or anything from those online that may I have not caught up with. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here this morning and just showing up. Have a lovely Sunday. Thank you.